we're going.
Okay, this is the Transportation Advisory Committee meeting for Oregon City for June 15th, 2021. It's now in session. And if Kim will be so kind as to take the roll.
Yes. Henry McEnroe,
Here.
Ray Atkinson,
Present.
Savannah. Oh, I'm going to butcher your last name, I think. Olvadia.
Present, and then so it's like oval, like the shape, and then dia, so Ovaldia.
Ovaldia. Okay. And Ben Simmons.
Present.
All right.
So next, I believe, is the minutes. If anybody wants to make any changes or anything, please speak up now.
I have 3 edits, small edits.
Okay.
I don't know the best way to share them. I have in the section A, I think the last bullet point, where it says start discussing the goals of the TAC. I want to change it to continue discussing the goals of the TAC. That makes sense. It's because we started discussing goals earlier this year. You see that?
I'm sorry, where was that at? Sorry.
It is in the packet on top of page 5.
Okay.
In this the bullet point there.
Okay. Yeah, I can change that.
Okay. Second item is in section C above communication. The last bullet point, just to clarify why, at least from my understanding, why we did not receive the grant for the McLaughlin to Conema Trail. I wanted to add because the grant funder prioritized projects in equity target areas, and the trail project did not meet the equity target areas. So that was my understanding of what that explanation was.
So just to clarify, the minutes are just like a really brief.
Okay.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
not like it's not like word verbatim or anything.
Okay. And the last thing I have is the future agenda items, is to clarify what the I-205 performance policy measure is. I was wanting to change it to I-205 total projects, the policy, strategies, and performance measures. Just to clarify what that means. And that's everything for me.
Okay.
Cool.
Anybody want to make any changes to the agenda?
Negative.
Then Kim, isn't the next one?
Well, you gotta approve the minutes, Henry.
Oh, we got to approve the minutes. Well, let's back up then. Anybody want to make a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes with the changes that Ray asked for.
Second.
I'll second it.
Or-
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
I
All opposed? All abstaining? Looks like it passed.
Okay.
Hey, Kim, sometime, do you mind sending out the final version? Some of Ray's, I was having trouble hearing some of Ray's stuff, so I just want to make sure I fully understand those.
Yeah.
Was my audio not working well, or not speak clearly? So, Zoom world's weird.
I think it's my hearing.
Okay. So nobody wants to change anything on the agenda.
Did not hear anything.
Okay. We did not have any public comments, and that will lead us into our first item, which is Kelly Reed from Planning giving a presentation on downtown pedestrian and bicycle needs inventory and action plan. Kelly, I will make you co-host so you can share your screen if you'd like.
That's fantastic. Thanks. Can you guys hear me okay?
Mhm.
Yeah, okay. I apologize if you hear my kids in the background yelling. They're having a ton of fun eating dinner. So we'll see how that goes. So thanks for having me at your meeting. I'm here to give you an update on the Bike and Ped Needs Inventory and Action Plan. you may remember the Transportation Demand Management Plan that the City Commission adopted in 2018 as a result of the Willamette Falls Legacy Project, the Riverwalk, and the expected increase in traffic that's going to be coming into downtown Oregon City. So the TDM plan is meant to expand the universe of trips, allow our downtown to kind of absorb more people, but not necessarily, through the use of all different modes. So we know that we can't accommodate everybody coming in their own vehicle and parking right at the falls. And so, we're looking at all the different strategies and ways we can manage that and handle it, and give people options to use to get downtown, and then travel within downtown. So the Bike and Ped Needs Inventory is a project of the TDM plan. The TDM plan, kind of the first step of it, was to form a TDM working group, which we did in 2019. And Ray Atkinson is the TAC representative on that working group, as well as Vance and Dana are involved too. And so that group is kind of overseeing all of the work that is related to TDM, and they're overseeing this needs inventory and action plan. So the goal of the project is to improve conditions for bicycles and pedestrians downtown, so that if people choose that mode, or if they want to walk or bike to get to downtown instead of driving, that it feels safe and comfortable to do so. Also, we know that everybody downtown is a pedestrian at some point, because you park, if you drive, you park and then you walk to your destination. Or if you're a transit user, you walk to your destination. So I think, this plan really covers everybody, everybody who uses downtown. And then it also allows, for probably less congestion. If people are feel comfortable choosing to walk or bike, then we have fewer vehicles coming into our downtown. Okay, so all that to say, we've been hard at work in the last few months. We were able to use some of our grant funding through Metro's Regional Travel Options Program to hire someone to help with this planning work. And that was great because I'm going to share some renderings with you, some SketchUp drawings that really communicate and show, what we're talking about. And I think it's really great to be able to do that. So that grant funding is fantastic to have. And I want to also thank Ray and Tim West. They both participated in the project so far. I think our intern that we hired interviewed both of them and got some really great input. So we did a ton of interviews and outreach, along with the data collection that we did through the project was done with volunteers and people from the TDM working group. So we really got a lot of work out of just a little bit of grant funding and kind of resources, and it was all hands on deck, and it's been really fantastic. So I am going to share with you the webpage. Our intern put together a story map. And so I'll share my screen. Okay. There we go. So this is posted on the website. Some of you may have looked at it already since it was linked in your agenda packet. But this is really just kind of tells the story of the project and kind of everything that we've done. And then there's a survey at the end where people can give us some feedback and some additional input. So where we're at right now is that we collected a bunch of data, we developed some draft projects, and now we're looking to prioritize those projects into a final action plan. So we have a lot of good background information. You all are probably really familiar with most of it already. Our project area includes downtown, including the north end all the way up to the Amtrak station. And then a little bit of the Bluff area above the elevator in the McLaughlin neighborhood. And so all of the existing data that we looked at is shown here. So this includes crash data, at which intersections are most dangerous. Can everyone see this? Yeah, okay. We looked at all of our missing or failing ADA ramps. So where we don't have the proper ADA ramps on the intersection corners, sidewalk corners. We looked for dark areas. So our volunteers and mostly Henry, our intern, actually walked around downtown at night in the wintertime and found all the really dark spots. We did an analysis with a major help from Ray on a level of traffic stress for bicycles. So based on the speed, volume of traffic and the conditions on the road and the width of the bike lane, if there is one, we could identify kind of which streets were comfortable for bicyclists and then which ones are not comfortable. And then also kind of which intersections were uncomfortable. So that helped us to kind of narrow down our projects for bicyclists to prioritize the routes where we can connect up a comfortable route to a comfortable route with, maybe there's a small gap where there's a stressful connection. And so if we can just address that little connection, then we can kind of make sure that our bicycling routes are all connected and comfortable for people to ride on and not dangerous. So we also have GIS data on missing sidewalks. We considered what the location of transit stops, existing bicycle parking. Some of this takes a while to load. And then our volunteers, as they walked around the project area, we asked them to log in any problems that they found, but then also just ideas that they had as they walked through. And so we have tons of really rich data and ideas from folks, which is really awesome. And Henry was able to really see where there was a lot of agreement. So some of the projects that we're looking to prioritize are ones where like everyone had a similar idea about a certain intersection or a certain project. So we, in addition to the interviews, data collection, we've held some meetings with folks, and generally overall we've heard that the community really wants us to focus on safety and equity, and actually implement the plan once we adopt it, which is definitely important. And then we heard lots of input on we need more bike parking, we need better crosswalks, we need a public restroom downtown. That's an interesting one that's related to this, right? Because if you're visiting downtown, you need some place to go. So I'm going to skip through some of this in the interest of time, but if you're interested, you can look, you can spend a lot of time on this story map. But what we've done is we've organized the draft projects into 3 areas. One is kind of the historic heart of downtown here. So you can click on a line or a point and you can see what the project is, and you can click on it for more information. And then we've got the bluff area above the elevator. And then we have the north end of downtown as well. So each of these, it represents, and the lines too represents a different project. And then at the very, very end of the story map, you can leave your thoughts in the survey. I've already taken it or tested it, right? So that's what it's telling me. But that's the story map. And then I do want to share with you, since I kind of just glossed over the projects, I want to share with you some of the projects that we came up with. And then if you have any input, here we go. If you have any input, we'd love to hear it, especially to help us prioritize. So we're kind of looking for what's most important to you. What do you think should rise to the top? What do you think maybe is less important? And that'll really help us prioritize. And just so you know, we have, let's see, I'm showing a slide right now, aren't I? It's really hard to tell sometimes what I'm sharing, so I apologize for that. Let me start the slideshow. So we have spoken with the McLaughlin Neighborhood Association, the CIC, and the Downtown Oregon City Association. We've gotten actually really positive feedback about a lot of these. So that's really exciting. And we've gotten a lot of helpful ideas as well. So without further ado, I will just show you a couple of projects. So here's 10th and Main. We all know that 10th and Main is a really kind of complex intersection where there are lots of different movements happening. Cars, lots of lanes, lots of different turns going on, and people crossing there. Pedestrians told us over and over again that they feel very uncomfortable. They almost got hit. We heard that over and over again. So what we are proposing for this as kind of something that we could do fairly easily and cheaply would be installing some high visibility striping on the crosswalks. As you can see, the crosswalk it's concrete, which when it was first installed, it kind of stood out from the asphalt because it was bright white. But over time, it has gotten old and dirty. And so now it's kind of gray and it's the same color as the road and it doesn't stand out. So we would install some striping, like black and white, high contrast. And maybe if we can work together with Vance and John and see if we can make sure it's safe, maybe we could add a pop of color. And that's what you see here is the little fish jumping, the little salmon in the crosswalk that could be colorful. So it could be kind of like a cool art project, but also a safety project. We also thought that there might be 1 or 2 turning movements that we could eliminate to make this safer. So one idea was this right turn lane. You could remove that and maybe add back a parking space. And so if somebody wants to turn right, they still can. They just don't have their own lane to do it. So I'll move on from that one. And I'm just sharing a handful of the projects here. So you see the project numbers. I'm not going in order and I'm not going to share all of them because there are, I think, 30 or so. So this one is at Railroad and 9th. So the project overall is kind of a streetscape improvement along Railroad Avenue to make that more inviting and comfortable and calm the traffic there. And so this is the idea for Railroad and 9th. And what I really like about this one is that it's just paint and little plastic candlesticks. So it's really easy and cheap to install, and it could be really highly effective to provide some delineated space for pedestrians and really slow down the traffic as they come around that corner. I think, the reason that this location is chosen is that, I think people will want to cross here and they want some place defined to walk, where right now it's just kind of this undefined area and you don't know where to be to not get hit by a car. And people kind of whip around that corner pretty quickly. So this would really slow them down, we think. And of course, the actual design of the artwork on the pavement would change, but that's just a kind of an idea. Another one that this was actually really well supported at McLaughlin Neighborhood Association. This would be adding a family-friendly route, which I'm sure you all are familiar with family-friendly routes in our TSP. So this would add one on 6th Street. And we chose 6th Street because it leads directly to the top of the elevator. And so that's where, if we're trying to get people to walk downtown, they're probably going to take the elevator if they're coming from the Bluff area. So this would create a family-friendly route for bikes and pedestrians. At 6th, what we see here is 6th is actually a really calm, really nice, perfect street for this, except at the Washington Street intersection. And that intersection has really poor sight distance. And we've got a lot of people that are driving very quickly and looking at the light at 7th and, trying to get to that green light. And so they're kind of moving quickly, and there is a crosswalk there now. But we heard a lot of input from folks that, it's not a great place to cross. Cars don't stop for them. And so one way to help that situation is to give people a little island in the middle of the crosswalk to stop and wait. If the car is not stopping, they can at least have some place safe in the middle of their crossing to wait. And so this provides that. The other thing it does, if you can see, it has little cutouts where the bikes can get through, but cars would not be able to go straight or turn left here. So if you're on 6th and you're driving, you reach Washington Street, you have to turn right. And that's, it would change people's travel patterns a little bit, but it would really improve the safety, because right now there's really poor sight distance here for cars as well. So if you're at 6th and you're trying to turn left onto Washington, it's really tricky to be able to see past all of the cars parked on the side of the road. So this, what we call a diverter at 6th and Washington would solve that issue, as well as providing safer pedestrian and bike crossing. Another similar one at John Adams, and this is another one that's really, it's just thermoplastic or paint and candlesticks. So it's pretty low cost. So this would do something a little kind of similar, where you add that island in the middle of the crossing. So this is at the corner where the Pioneer Center is, where the entrance of the Pioneer Center, crossing 5th Street. So John Adams is already a family-friendly route in our TSP, but we haven't really built any of that or designed it really to be a family-friendly route. So this would go a long way towards making that a lot more family-friendly. And this was a popular idea with the McLaughlin neighborhood as well. Adding a stop sign here was not supported, because there's a stop sign just at the next block. But this would not only calm traffic and slow cars down, but it would give pedestrians that space in the middle. There's a lot of bicycle parking opportunities, mostly downtown, but also on the bluff. And the key to having these bike corrals on the street is that you have to have the business owner's support, because that business owner has to agree, hopefully their customers use it and that's why they want it. But the street sweeper can't get in there. So they have to agree to sweep it out if there's leaves or anything like that. And so these are utilized a lot in Portland, and they're highly successful, usually when they're located in front of a bar or a restaurant where, young people congregate, and those folks who want to ride their bikes together and meet up at a place. So the owner of Black Ink Coffee is really supportive of this. And so this might be the first one that we're able to install. But there are several other potential locations where we would be reaching out to the business owners to see if they're interested. And we would try to locate them in a way that would not impact the amount of on-street parking spaces. So this one, there's already not on-street parking there because of the fire hydrant. We still can't block the fire hydrant, but we can get closer than a vehicle can, from what I understand. Another project is a wayfinding signage plan. I think everyone kind of sees the need for that and understands what that is. And I think this might be one of my last slides, but this is 14th and Main. This is, along with 10th and Main, this was the most kind of talked about intersection of being dangerous because the traffic on 14th doesn't stop. They don't have a stop sign or a signal or anything. And so they're just zooming through. And so crossing, if you're walking along Main Street or you're trying to cross Main Street, it gets to be, really uncomfortable and dangerous. So what this would do is add curb extensions to shorten the crossing distance and eliminate a turning movement there from 14th on to Main. And the good thing about this one too is that the city might be moving forward with a resurfacing of Main Street and 14th very soon. And so we could potentially install the curb extensions along with that paving project. So this could potentially happen fairly soon. I'm going to stop there because, well, I guess I'll share this one with you since it's already here and it's kind of fun. So we all know Center Street between 12th and 14th. It's kind of where the railroad trestle is above. You can see it's above the street. There's no sidewalk. There's no signage for you, directional signage, wayfinding signage. It seems kind of like a weird, sketchy alley. And so this project would add lighting, add signage, and kind of maybe add some art to better define the space and create kind of a cool shared space that would also provide better access to the new food cart pod that's near there, and to some of the other businesses on the north end, like Oregon City Brewing. Okay, I think I've taken up enough of your time, and I'm sure you probably have some questions too, so I will go ahead and stop there.
I know I have some, but I'm going to ask the committee if they would like to go first before I do my bit. So anybody on the committee have any questions they want to ask about this?
Yeah, I have a question. Can you hear me?
Go for it. Yeah, I can.
Okay, I wasn't sure. I didn't get a chance to test my mic. So on the last slide there along Center Street, can you put that slide back up?
Sure.
The space under underneath the railroad track, the green area in there, is that city-owned property or is that owned by the railroad?
I believe it's city right of way. You know, and I will say about this one too, this SketchUp drawing is just, it was kind of our intern having a little bit of fun, putting in like a little statue and stuff. What we would really need to do how we would start this project is by having some sort of like little design charrette with the business owners and stakeholders around the area to figure, and our public works department, of course, to figure out kind of a design that will work. So, you know, this is just one person's idea, but
So,
yeah.
Yeah, so my idea in here is this space is in an area where I desperately need parking, especially with the food cart pod just around the corner. If this area could incorporate some parking spaces in this, and then maybe you get more room to also do your improvement that's on Center Street. I didn't even realize that was a real street. I thought it was just an alley to
Right.
nowhere.
Right. It connects through.
It does connect through?
Mhm.
That's interesting. I'll have to try it sometime.
Yeah.
But just if that area, maybe if we can utilize that space to create, you know, parking in there, then you could then parallel the bike laning activities in that area there, because this area is getting a lot of use now.
Mhm.
Where when just with that development in there, and you try to go there on a Friday at 5:30 or 6 o'clock, good luck. Waiting for some place to get in. But maybe if you had that as a partnership in there, of getting that space in there, then that would also visually make it more appealing.
Mhm.
The other one was about eliminating on 14th, I think it is, to eliminate the left-hand turn. That one there. I'm telling you, that's not going to work because that's going to bottle up a lot of traffic. It's already has a problem just getting to Main Street, especially if you're coming down the street along Home Depot and trying to get into downtown. You have to make a right and then a left to get back into the downtown section. Otherwise, you have to go all the way up the hill in Washington there. So maybe instead of slowing people down would be maybe putting some of the rumble bumps in there when they do the resurfacing, and then painting it, you know, the bright yellow, you know, slower slow traffic ahead, pedestrian, large pedestrian traffic, in the area. And then maybe that would reduce the speed in there. But if you take that left turn out of there, it's going to make it hard for people to get into the downtown. That's just my perspective of it. I'd be willing to have, a conversation about it and figuring out how that will work.
I'm going to jump in on this particular one because I've also noticed that that is a main travel route
Yeah.
over to the old bridge into West Lynn. And furthermore, under current conditions, at certain hours of the day, we're stacking traffic up out to at least Abernathy currently.
Mm-hmm.
And if you make it so you can't make a left turn, we'll stack it up all the way out to 213.
Right. So you're in agreement with my observation. The other thing is you got the car dealership there, so you have a lot of activity, and right where that building is shown in that photo is their garage for their maintenance. And so that's going to make, even more difficult for them. I don't think that the Subaru dealer would be happy with losing the ability to turn left there, or even the customers coming from 99 there to be able to make a left turn, going north. Other than that, I like the concept of the visuals. These are great. Your students did a good job.
Thanks, those are helpful comments.
Savannah, I'm going to call on you next, if only because ladies first.
Oh, thank you. Kelly, thank you for putting together this presentation. A couple comments regarding Center Street. I'm wondering if you have kind of spoken to the residents in that area, because I'm directly below, and what we would like is not, with Ice House and the food cars, after 10 p.m., there's just a lot of activity and it's loud, and I'm not sure if a shared space would be something the community would want in that area, but I do agree that some parking needs to be incorporated, because for the food carts, it's just becoming overwhelmed, and they are just starting to travel into that parking in Center Street already, which has already upset some of the residents. With 14th and the public restrooms as well in downtown area, because I frequent that, I think maybe a good spot for them would be in the elevator area. It's always interesting to me that there's no place to relieve yourself as you're walking that path. And then for 14th, I don't know if, again, closing off that left turn will help, but trying to make it more visible that pedestrians are wanting to cross is more helpful, because the cars don't recognize you when you're on the corner, but I don't think cutting off that left turn will help. But thank you.
Thanks.
Tim?
Kelly, you've done a lot of research on this. I could see that. Yeah, but I also have issues with the 14th Street deal, and the fact that that is a very busy intersection, and to go ahead and cut off a left turn lane, and where it's a right turn lane going east, that is something that if you can't eliminate that either, because coming off of Highway 99, it becomes a mess. And I think probably one of the bigger slow down things and ways to build safety for pedestrians on that would be one of your yellow flashing lights. You press a button and those lights flash on and off. That will slow down and stop traffic a whole lot better than white lines on the cement. So I think that would be a huge thing. Eliminating a lane going in and out of our city is not a good idea. And I just think that in one of the busiest intersections of our city, we can't go ahead and let less traffic through. And as well as looking at Main Street and 10th right there, I think do not eliminate that right-hand turn, because you will go ahead and build a traffic stop, traffic jam all the way through downtown if you don't keep that 2 lanes, because both those lanes are very busy on rush hour. And it doesn't even take rush hour to go ahead and make it busy, but it's something that my recommendation would be, do not go ahead and eliminate that. And if people aren't stopping, one of those yellow flashing lights really does work, and it will be safer, it'll be faster for traffic, and it won't slow down our city when we are only going to get busier, really. So that's all I have to say.
Thanks.
Any other comments before I say anything?
Is there a way to get a copy of this slide?
Sure. I can send this to Kim, and then she can pass it on. I didn't want to put it in your agenda packet because it's mostly pictures and not a lot of explanation. So I wanted to be here to provide the explanation, but now that you've heard it, I'm happy to share the slides with you.
Yeah, that way we can give you some more feedback, because
Yeah.
we can study it and go back and visually see it, maybe make some additional recommendations, whatever, on some of the areas in there. Cool. Thank you for putting that up.
Then I'm going to ask this question, which is, did you have any input into allowing the restaurants to start using the sidewalk for outdoor eating, not the parking spots, but the sidewalks on one of the busier corners that is down there?
I don't think the TDM group specifically made any recommendations about that, but we talked about it, last year when it was underway, and I think the group is generally supportive of using the space. And I will tell you too that regarding on-street parking, we are planning to conduct another parking study in September that would measure, so the economy will be pretty much back to what it's probably going to be. We've delayed it. We've delayed the parking study a long time already. So we think we'll be ready in September to measure the occupancy rate of every on-street parking space downtown. And then from that, we'll develop some recommendations regarding, how they can be better allocated, what hours make sense, should they all be 2-hour spaces or not? And I think that parking study will help us understand the impact of the parklets and, the opportunities that we have where, maybe we can have some locations that make a lot of sense as parklets. And maybe other locations don't make as much sense, but I think the parking study will really help support that.
I'm referring more to the use of sidewalks for dining,
Okay.
and that creates a blockage in and of itself when you want to go past the place.
Yeah, I think that's all the more reason to use the parklet concept, right? Because it frees up the sidewalk space.
Eventually, though, you're going to end up with no parking downtown. So with that, I
Henry,
think we should.
Henry, I just want to,
Oh, go ahead.
so with regard to the parklets, so a lot of discussion about parklets this year was, we kind of moved into parklets without a lot of study, right? We looked to what other agencies have done, and we came up with some solutions, and then we adjusted those solutions through a couple of iterations. But I think the location that you're talking about at 8th and Main, we did allow one that instead of building tables and chairs, or a place for tables and chairs out in the parking strip, we allowed them to build a pedestrian strip so that they could, so that a pedestrian can walk around those areas, right? So instead of using those areas with seating, there's an ADA walkway there and I don't know if that's what you're talking about in specifics, but the problem we were experiencing with that we tend to see, because we've got such narrow sidewalks, is much seating at all. And all of a sudden, especially if you're doing it on that corner, we've got some curb extensions. So we've been trying to accommodate tables and chairs out in those parking, what we call the furnishing zone. And in that situation there, they were also trying to do, some covers for weather, and it became to where the pedestrian actually didn't want to walk through what felt very much like a restaurant space, right? And so they were actually walking out and stepping into the parking strip anyway. And so it's been a balancing act. It's not my favorite thing in the world, but I think it's temporary. And we tried to that particular business owner, was building a pretty nice product. And so we have given that a try, and I think it works, but I know it's not perfect.
Enough for that discussion, I think. I think we should probably move on to the next subject. And thank you, Kelly, for coming over and chatting with us about this.
Yeah, I think I see a hand raised.
I didn't see one.
I can jump in quickly. I just wanted to discuss the
Sorry.
lane removal discussion and the curb extension, issue. I just want to advocate for safety with that, because as someone who walks and bikes through downtown, I see the importance of providing a curb extension. In my mind, safety is more important than car convenience. And so I think that's a difficult conversation we're going to be having in the city. I just wanted to advocate for safety as more important than speed in my mind. So thank you.
Savannah, you still got your hand up.
I know. I just wanted to jump in. I'm not sure what has been discussed in terms of the paper mill project and everything, but I think a parking structure in that area would benefit downtown, and then people would just be able to cross and then walk the strip from Black Ink to as far as they want to go, and then make their way back. Just an idea.
Savannah?
Yes.
The city and the business owners of Oregon City downtown have been discussing a parking structure for the last 45 or 50 years and have not been able to come up with agreement on anything.
All right. The paper mill. You can cross the street, head down Main, and then make your way back as best as they can, and they get the full view.
And the city parking lot out in the outback, down by the creamery, is not well occupied either. But that's a story for another time, I think. Anything else for the good of the order? John, you got your hand up, or are you just doing something there? Yep, let's move on. We'll call it a
Thank you.
day, move on. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Hi, Kelly. So the next discussion item is the Glen Oak Road corridor analysis, and I believe that Dana is going to do that. Dana, do you want me to make you co-host?
Yes, please.
Okay.
It still says I can't screen share.
You should be good now.
Okay, can you guys see that?
Yes.
Okay. Oops, sorry, too many screens and I lose all of the people. Okay. So tonight I'm gonna just quickly walk you through the Glen Oak Road corridor review. Again, I'm Dana Webb, city engineer. So I first wanted to start by sharing that in May of 2020, ODOT issued a revised speed zone manual. And so with that revised manual, they switched their guidance for setting speed zones in urban areas from using the 85th percentile to an opportunity to look at a 50th percentile or an average speed. And so this review for the Glen Oak corridor is based on that new speed manual, where the previous one that I've shared with you would have been based off of the 85th percentile. So looking at Glen Oak Road, there are 35-mile-an-hour speed signs along that corridor. As I researched the corridor and went to find the speed zone order that created the 35-mile-an-hour zone, neither myself nor ODOT was able to find a speed zone order. So effectively, there is no speed zone on that street. And so then we have kind of this option or kind of situation where what applies then is the statutory speed limits, which if it falls under a residential district, then we can consider it a 25-mile-an-hour. If it doesn't qualify as a residential district, then it ends up with a essentially a 55-mile-an-hour or a basic rural speed zone. And so right now, that's kind of where we're at. We've left the 35-mile-an-hour signs. And as I walk you guys through what I've found in my review, we'll be asking for your guidance on your recommendation moving forward. So I dug through ODOT's description of a residential district, and they define that as the spacing between the driveways. And so Glen Oak Road corridor is about 5,000 feet. It has 13 streets that connect in and approximately 45 driveways. And so Glen Oak Road does meet the spacing to be considered a residential district. So we do have that option of the 25-mile-an-hour statutory speed. So what I'd like to do is kind of walk you through a little bit of what I found as I looked at our historical speed and volume counts. So this slide here, the solid bars are the 85th percentile speeds, and the dashed bars are the 50th percentile, and then the colors are based on the year. So our posted speed of 35 here, this is eastbound, and so near 213, you're seeing speeds of around 39, and then down at Beaver Creek Road, you're seeing about 36. So these are kind of what we see. The posted speed of 35 kind of really does match those 85th percentile speeds. It wouldn't really match those 50th percentile speeds, and you could support a 30-mile-an-hour speed limit in this area. So again, we collect those traffic volumes and speeds every 3 years. We were scheduled to do that in 2020. We've postponed that until 2021 due to COVID pandemic. With the college and the high school not operating, we were going to see really skewed numbers in those parts of town, and then just generally low numbers. So a quick look at volumes. We definitely see more vehicles down at the Highway 213 end with kind of around 4,500, and the Beaver Creek roadside anywhere from 1,500 to about 2,400. I suspect we'll see some changes in these volumes now that Myers Road is fully connected to 213, and we might see those as soon as these 2021 counts. So this is just a quick visual. Each of these dots represents a crash along the corridor. And so what I looked at were just these ones directly on there. The blue dots are property damage only. The yellow dots are an injury. And if there was a red dot, that shows a fatality. So we've got just a few accidents through here. The full report really looks at those. For the most part, they were rear end, likely due to driver inattention, with a good chunk of those being property damage only. The majority of the crashes occurred during daylight conditions and when the roadway was dry, which generally again leads toward driver inattention because it isn't based off of darkness or a slippery roadway surface. The corridor does not experience a higher than average number of crashes for a corridor like this. So next, we did a web form survey. So we published that survey from March 18th to May 6th. And this is a screenshot of the survey, and it asked for some information and gave you 4 choices for what your preference for the speed on this corridor was. We did leave an open-ended box to kind of give a recommendation on why you believe that's the appropriate speed limit. And then we always like to know how people hear about things so that we know where to focus our outreach in the future. So in order to advertise this, it was a email to TAC members. An email went out to CIC officers, City Commission, the Caulfield Neighborhood Association leadership, all with a request to share the survey with their networks. It was posted on the city webpage news. It went out in a weekly subscription email to the neighborhood. It was posted in each of our monthly city updates with our e-news and on Nextdoor in April and May. And then we had, I think, 3 or 4 different postings to social media, which I believe was shared in Oregon City Chit Chat. So from the survey, we received 110 unique submissions. And so I say unique because I go through and kind of do a check to make sure people aren't submitting more than once. Sometimes I think they hit the button twice and it sometimes accepts those. So 110 submissions. So first one I'll share is, how did you hear about the survey? Most folks shared that they heard about it through social media or Nextdoor. So these always are good things that we share back with our communication staff on how to best reach the community. And then these are really showing the same information. It's just 2 different ways to show it. So the response is, we had 45 people respond that they preferred a 25 mile per hour. 37 people said 30 miles per hour. 24 suggested we keep the existing 35, and 4 people responded they'd like to raise the speed limit. So this kind of just gives it in a different visual. So 41% of the people that responded wanted the 25 miles per hour, and 33% wanted the 30 miles per hour. So this is really just kind of a few of the reasons why people wanted the speed limit. There was a lot of references to the new park going in and the neighbors wanting to walk there with the dog park, an option to walk their dog there. So it really kind of varied, but again, I think people felt the 35 made sense, many years ago when it was a more rural area, and not quite so much now today with it being more developed. So this is a zoomed in of the immediate area. So each of these dots, and again, because these neighborhoods are more dense with smaller lots, a lot of our dots don't show up on here, but there are 45 green dots representing 25 miles an hour, 37 of the yellow dots wanting 30. And again, the full map is in your packet, but this is kind of how the immediate neighborhood feels about the Glen Oak Road speed limit. So then that brings us to kind of these options to move forward. Option 1 is utilize the statutory speed limit, which is that 25 miles an hour. We could move forward and have that implemented in 3 to 4 weeks after we identify a signage plan, confirm we have a number of signs, get our locates to put the new signs in, and then identify that outreach that we would do about the speed limit change. Option 2 would be to submit a speed zone request to the state. In order to do that, I would need to finalize my traffic report. Once we kind of saw the data for the community response and the lack of a actual 35 mile an hour speed limit, we had some options. And so I haven't finalized that engineering study. So that would take a couple of weeks to finalize and submit to ODOT. ODOT would review that anywhere from 4 to 6 months, hopefully shorter. I've adjusted my format for my report to more closely match ODOT with a hope that speeds up the process, but no guarantees. And then in that situation, they'd be likely to designate it as a 30 miles per hour. So I think I'll stop sharing and see what you guys have to say.
As chairman, I'm going to add one piece of information that might help in the long run, which is the 35-mile-an-hour speed limit that's out there, posted out there now, was inherited from the county when it was annexed and had never been, to my knowledge, seriously evaluated after it came into the city. So that's what I know about the history of that. It's an inherited speed limit. So I kind of suspect it was probably established before there were speed orders issued, which is why you never found one. So with that, I'll open it up to everybody on the committee for questions or discussions or whatever. Anybody, anything?
Question regarding the dot map. If there's more than one response for an address, does or like apartment complexes have apartment numbers, but the main address is one address? How would that be displayed on the map? Is each apartment have a dot, or is it one for the whole address?
Each submission has its own dot. And so when I check for unique submissions, I sort by address. And if I've got two matching addresses, but they've used two different names and given, two different emails, then I consider those unique submissions. But if it's exactly the same name, email, and oftentimes the comment box is exactly the same, like they were able to hit the button twice.
Okay, thank you.
So the dots are just not going to show very well in this kind of an environment.
Yeah, makes sense.
I might have missed this. How far back does the data go?
The speed and volume data is 2017, 14, and 2011. I think I had a couple of 2008, maybe some volumes.
Okay, thank you.
I know you probably don't have it, and I'm not even sure it's pertinent, but is there any graphical relationship between the development and the speed recordings? I'm trying to think about whether all that development out there on the south side of Glen Oak Road is reflected in the speed measurements. I kind of doubt it, but I thought I would ask the question just for the heck of it.
So the last set of speed and volumes was taken in 2017, and I don't have the full packet open, but in the packet I have those three different years, and so I'm pretty sure by 2017 most of that area was built.
That's my memory too.
And I just looked back at the volumes, and what I can share with you is that 2014 volumes were higher than 2017 volumes on Glen Oak.
But we can't expect some changes now that Myers Road is opened up.
Yeah, I think the volumes east close to 213 will likely get a little smaller. Folks that might live closer to Myers that were coming down to Glen Oak. So it'd be interesting to see what those look like when we get that next set.
When you say the next set is coming later this fall, or?
We are programmed to do the citywide speed and volume counts this fall. I know the college isn't intending to be open for full on-site classes.
Correct.
And so, we'll just have to make sure that as we look at the 2020 numbers, we're acknowledging those are going to be a little lower from college traffic.
Okay, thanks.
Dana, am I correct to assume if this street was opened up brand new today, it would have been assigned a 25 mile an hour, and that the 35 mile an hour is just because it was a county adoption.
Yeah, so I guess if it opened today with the number of streets and driveways it has, then yes, it could have been signed 25. If it was a new street without all the driveways, it would not qualify for the residential district because it doesn't have enough access points.
Gotcha. Thank you.
It is a collector, isn't it?
Yes.
And as a collector, isn't 35 a city stated appropriate speed?
Our collectors are anywhere from 25 to 35, I believe, is what our TSP says.
Well, I like it lower. I mean, I'm just trying to find obstacles that might need to be overcome.
As one of the things you're asking for tonight is whether we want to push for 25 or 35, because you said there's two options. And the first option was 25, and the second option was a longer time to implement, and it'd be 35. And so I like 25 because I like lower speed, because it's safer when you have lower speed. That's my opinion.
I'm personally leaning toward 30, but not that's only because I'm pretty sure that given the amount of time you have to get off of 213 at the signal, that it's going to be difficult to get more than 2 cars turned in there if we make it much less than 30. But I'm open to going either way. But I also know that from sitting out in my van lately and watching people come up the street when they don't know I'm watching, very few people seem to regard 25 as a standard driving speed. So take it for what it's worth. Okay, let's make a recommendation if anybody has any strong opinions one way or the other. Anybody want to come out and say they like 25, besides Ray? I mean, I know he does.
I like safety.
I was
not bad.
wondering, sorry, can you pull up the area just so I can get a visual one more time?
Are you like the aerial maps in the package?
Just the points that what they're talking about where they want the speed limit lowered. I don't know if speed bumps are a good suggestion, but that's just in terms of safety, everyone pays attention to speed bumps.
We've discussed speed bumps on that road before and said no.
Okay.
They're already there.
All right.
I'm trying to get the Google map on the thing.
I think you went past it, Dana.
The speed, this one?
No, the next one. The one that's got the map, the little map, but no, the one with the, yeah, that one. The high school now is off to the right, and the community college is off to the left. So that should, and this, the line off on your left with all the dots on it is 213. So that should give you a feel for where we're at.
Yeah.
So we've had a representative from the homeowners association or the neighborhood association talk to us before on this. Was their main concern the speed element, or was it the parking issues within that development that were really blocking visibility coming out from the streets, or was it both? Do you guys have a good recollection of that?
It was a little of both. For sure they had problems with the parking and the site visibilities coming out of the side streets. But just as important, they've had concerns about all the speeding out there, especially as it relates to the high school and the younger children that are wandering around in the area, going to the park and, just generally being children.
And John, do you remember, didn't we put some of the monitors out there? Do we still have that data from how many perceived speeders we had versus actual ones out there?
We did do that. I don't recall there being a glaring problem, but I don't remember the data, Ben, to be honest with you. And you're right about the fact that that was a combination of speeding and parking concerns for sight distance. I guess one thing that I was curious about as I was listening, Dana, was did Oregon City Police Department comment at all? I don't know if that's necessarily a need for part of the process, but did they offer an opinion?
I didn't reach out to them. If we move forward with the request for an ODOT speed zone, they like to have both community support, which would be the TAC, and then also feedback from police. But because I wasn't sure if we were going to go the speed zone route, I haven't reached out to police.
So the other little, so this is kind of one of those facilities where it could go, for me, I could go either way. It's interesting that the numbers do kind of reflect a desire for lower speed limits, but speed limits aren't necessarily set, shouldn't be, in my opinion, set, so much based on opinion, so heavily weighted on that. We struggle the minute we sign something 25 miles an hour with enforcement, right? And if we're not having, if we've set it a little bit low because of it's the popular thing to do, then that is probably not the best thing. And the other thing I'll say is not very often we give the TAC such power wielding options here to make such big decisions. So this is I'm kind of waiting to watch and see what happens here because it's pretty impressive. But maybe the right thing to do is to go ahead and finish that, ask ODOT to finish that study. That'll be a delay, and I'm assuming we would leave the 35 mile an hour postings in place. But we would have an official, report from ODOT, and we could lean pretty heavy on that as opposed to just kind of making an TAC advisory committee wielding its power decision here, even though I know that it looks like everything's pointing towards something a little bit lower.
So if we reach out to ODOT to request a speed limit, they would not recommend a 25 because that's something that we can initiate without their approval. We have the legal authority, if it meets residential district, to do that ourselves. They wouldn't, if it goes to them, they would recommend very likely a 30 mile per hour.
I pulled up the information from that TAC meeting, and it looks like a total 24-hour vehicle count was 16,872 vehicles, and the average speed was 29.35 miles per hour.
Okay. And I know one of the other conversations we had during that with the sight distance was that the parking violations were all occurring after 5 or 6 in the evening when we didn't have any patrols out there. Do you know if we ever did send any patrols or the parking people, the parking enforcement were not out there? So did we ever come back with actual police and enforce those laws? So that would have alleviated part of the problems?
Hey, Ben, I can answer that. The answer is here in operations, we did not contact the police and have them go out there. The word I got from code enforcement, who does do the parking enforcement out there, was they don't have personnel go out there after hours or weekends, and that if a resident had a parking complaint, that they were to call the non-emergency line. But no, Ben, we did not ask for extra police patrols for parking out there.
Okay,
this
so my question would be then, so if we're not enforcing the parking issue and then we're changing the speed, but we're not really enforcing the speed limit, you know, it seems to me like we're making changes that are not going to have any effect.
And that particular issue is beyond our pay grade. But Tim Wust, he has a hand raised, and Tim Morgan has a hand raised. And since I can only say Tim, I'm going to pick Tim Wust to start first because I had Tim Morgan last time.
Okay, thank you, Henry. My name is Tim West.
West,
The U is silent, yes.
forget the U.
Yeah,
Forget
yeah. Okay. So Dana, when was the last data taken on speed on that road? 2018?
2017.
Okay, Myers Road has gone in since, all right?
Yes.
It's that Glen Oak is a major cut through from Beaver Creek to 213. And yes, people zoom to get to one to the other. But Myers Road is a huge, huge thing that takes off a ton of traffic and will slow down the amount of traffic and probably even the speed that goes up and down Glen Oak. So I think that this decision is very premature to go ahead and say, oh, slow them down on Glen Oak when the amount of traffic and probably the speed has been reduced because the number of people want to get from one place to another are minimized quite a bit. So I'm all in favor of just keeping it the same, just because I think that the amount of speeders are going to be over on an easier to zip through road, and that would be Myers at this point.
Tim?
My suggestion is if you move it to 30, you'll probably get the traffic to do 35. And so if you're trying to get 35-mile-an-hour speed limit below 40, which is probably what the complaints are running at, just by knocking it down 5, you kind of split the medium there to keep the traffic down to what it should be and not keep it so slow that it's bogging up the street there. That's my opinion. Given Holcomb Boulevard, for example, you guys dropped it from 40 to 35. And, you know, it's very hard to maintain 35 going down that hill, but it has reduced a lot of the traffic speed, the speeding down there. And I know people have been commenting about it. So just usually 5 miles is going to be a better fix than really slowing it down. If you're trying to force the speed down. That's all my comment is.
So it seems that as a committee, for a recommendation, we have 3 options, actually. We have the ever popular do nothing. We have the reasonably popular 25, and we have the political compromise of 30. So I'm going to take a straw vote, if you will, and say, how many people would like to see 25? And that includes okay, 1. How many would like to see 30? 1, 2, 3. How many would say leave it as it is until at least a year so that we can see what Myers Road does? And I'm going for that one just because nobody else supported it.
That's me as well.
Okay, so we got two of them. It looks like 2 of them to leave it be, 3 of them to drop it to 30, which I think sounds reasonable, actually, and 1 to 25. I think that was the correct one. So at that point, I think it would be best if rather than us actually making a recommendation for Dana to be able to say, this is our opinion, and that leaves her the option of saying, this is another voice to support whatever seems to be a reasonable option at the time, because I really think the do nothing approach for another year is worthy to verify what impact Myers Road actually has on the situation. So, having said that,
Yeah, maybe in
anybody-
that time, if you do it within a year, you could do another quick traffic study on it, put one of those counters up and get an average speed reading on it.
Yeah, and I think that average speed was 29 on the last go around.
So that shows you they're doing 5-6 miles below the speed limit.
Yeah.
They maybe just should leave it.
Right. So to wrap this one up, what I hear is, Dana, we've got a traffic counts coming in the fall. We can support that and put this on the shelf. But either way, we're taking it back to ODOT. So we're going to have to wrap this report up. And I just don't know if that's before or after we get the data in the fall. But I think that's reasonable. Otherwise, no matter what decision the TAC makes, it's likely to be, countered with neighborhood either appreciation or frustration, one of the two, right?
Well, as a resident on a similar street, I will tell you, it's frustrating to be able to sit there and watch your neighbors flying up and down the street when they really shouldn't. Not necessarily because it's not crowded, but because they have no idea who's about to pop out in front of them.
So
And
how do we go
that is-
back to the conversation of enforcement? It seems to be that that's one of the pieces of the puzzle that are missing is the enforcement position.
It is, and the city has not necessarily wanted to expand their forces because they have to support them. And all that costs money.
I'm not convinced, and I know Vance made a comment there about enforcement, but I'm not convinced that police aren't enforcing that. I think if they hear reports of speeding, they're enforcing it. And the parking issue, I think they were looking at that during regular hours. And I think that if that complaint continues, that police will look at it, even though they're patrol officers, not code enforcement officers. So I'm not convinced that there's not enforcement going on out there.
Okay. Yeah, because that seems to be alleviate the immediate problem and the concern of the homeowners association.
Yeah, correct. If I misspoke, I certainly did not mean to say that they are not enforcing. I meant to say, my point was I have not asked them to do extra patrols out there for parking or speeding.
Gotcha.
And what the speed counts show is that, 50% of the people are going below the speed limit today, or in 2017, 14, and 2011. There's about 15% that are probably going over the speed limit, over the current 35.
Yeah.
So we can wait until the next set of counts come in, but the next set of counts wouldn't change the 50th percentile speed limit that we would get, right? So they wouldn't be a drastic enough change to change what that speed limit would be. So if we go through ODOT's process, it's a 90% chance they're going to identify a 30-mile-per-hour speed limit, because they aren't going to identify a 25-mile-an-hour speed limit, because we have the authority to determine that ourselves and assign that road that speed limit. So we can absolutely wait, but I don't know that we're going to get any different data, unless what you're wanting to see is that people are driving slower because there's less traffic on Glen Oak Road.
And And the change in traffic pattern may be affecting that, because if I remember correctly, if you use Myers Road, you have a traffic signal to get out onto Beaver Creek. If you use Glen Oak, you got to take Potluck.
Yeah, so Myers Road is a 30. So right now people are going to choose to probably stay on Glen Oak because it's 35 and Myers is 30 and there's a school zone on the east end. So leaving at 35 isn't going to encourage people to use Myers Road. They'll likely choose the new extension because I think it's an easier out at that signal versus the Glen Oak signal, because you get the phasing and you get a protected left at the Myers signal. So people who are making that left might make that choice versus the movement that they're required to make at the Glen Oak. But if we're thinking we'll see different speeds and volumes, we will likely see different volumes, but the speed, unless you're wanting to see that people are choosing to slow down on their own and that we don't want to adjust the speed limit, that's, I think, the only thing we would see from new data.
Okay. So again, have opinions changed any on this?
I realize I'm the lone vote for being 25. I just wanted Danny to basically shared what my concerns are. VODOT proceeds with the study, then there's pretty much very little chance of it getting 25. And so just want to advocate again for lower speed, because I value safety, and someone who lives nearby on Myers Road, that would be my mind, make it easier for me to walk and bike through the neighborhoods in a safer environment. And so I want to advocate for that. And also I'm curious with the statutory, thing you're talking about, is that based on what Portland created and then got state approval to implement statewide? Is that the history on that, or is this something different?
No, this is just a residential district can be 20 without a speed study. What Portland can do is drop that to 20, and actually all cities have that
20, that's right.
Drop it down to 20 if they choose.
Different processes.
Yeah, that statutory speed of 25 has existed since time immemorial.
What I believe is that if you put it at 25, you'll get 85% of the people speeding rather than 15% of the people speeding. So it's just that kind of road. It's not it's not one of the side streets. Side streets 20 to 25, absolutely, but not on a connector. I just don't think people are going to obey 25.
Well, I agree they won't obey it. I'm just concerned about my safety and safety of college students and high school students and kids. So as my background shows, I'm a advocate for safety. So that's my opinion. Thank you.
Slightly on a side note, are we going to get the sidewalks on Glen Oak extended out to 213 by the park and filling in?
Well, it's in our TSP, but we don't have any projects planned for that, Henry. So as development happens, further sidewalk extension will happen. And, at some point, it's like similar to what we've been talking about with Holcomb. There's a lot of desire for sidewalks, but there's not necessarily extension of sidewalks across frontages that aren't either under a development requirement. But we don't have any planned project there, unlike say Myers Road, for instance.
So we have an attractor, but no way to get to it. Is that what we're trying to say?
What's the attractor?
The park?
You've got ways to get to the park, but not from say 213 at Glen Oak. You can get there from Myers Road.
Yeah. That's sort of where I was headed with that, was you can't get to it from the Glen Oak area. Well, at least the 213 end of it.
That's true.
Okay.
Hi. Yes. I just wanted to suggest it sounds like if it's a violation and a speeding issue, we enforce the law in that area and go back to ODOT, given the bikeability and the location of the community college, maybe they would suggest 25 miles an hour and just give them the background and information once we do enforce that law of people reducing their speed or not parking in that area, what they would say in a year or so.
So I had that discussion with ODOT, and the assumption is if we're submitting a request to them, that we're not accepting the 25 statutory speed limit. So they don't assign that in a speed order, because a city has the legal right to sign at 25 without their approval. So if you're submitting it to them, you're essentially saying that you're not accepting that 25 mile an hour statutory speed limit. And so they're going to assign it a 30, 35, 40, 45, 50, one of those non-statutory speed limits.
Okay.
Even though,
well,
sorry, there's just a disconnect, because if we need ODOT's support in making this decision, yet we're given the power to make this decision, I'm just not sure what we're gonna accomplish. Thank you.
In order to bring this to a conclusion and we can get on to the next subject and not run this into, say, midnight discussion, I'm going to make a motion that we recommend a 30 mile an hour limit on Glen Oak Road. And I'm going to call for the vote without a second.
I want to clarify before you vote on this. I don't think that's how it works when you submit to ODOT. ODOT chooses it for you. We only have a choice of 25 if we as a committee choose 25. But once you submit to ODOT for a speed order, ODOT chooses it for you. We no longer have a say in it. So just want to clarify, I don't think we need to vote on what you're talking about.
You're correct, Ray. You're correct. They make the decision as to what it is. But in terms of the motion to move it forward, I just picked that number as to say, send it off to them. Tim West, you still got your hand up, and I said it right this time.
Oh, no, I don't have my hand up, but I agree with you, Henry. I'll vote for 30.
So anyway, I'm going to call for the vote now without a second on my motion. All in favor, say aye.
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 Hi.
Okay. Thank you. I know it's not necessarily what everybody wanted, but we have
Do
to
we
move
have other
on.
votes or just the 4 votes? Like, do we have negative? Like, I want to vote too.
Okay, go ahead. If anybody says no, go ahead. I mean, 5, 6, I lost count.
So I'm a no vote on this.
Okay, that's good. I like no votes.
I was a nay as well.
Yeah. So 1 against, at least.
I think we got 2 against, I believe.
Well. Oh, okay. Well, yeah, but John doesn't vote. Oh, 2. Okay, John, who
Ben.
was the second one? I know.
Yeah, I was a nay. I was a nay on that as well.
Oh, okay. So as a bare majority,
How long are you going to run this out, Henry?
I'm done. I'm done. I think it's time to move on.
All right, moving on to the Public Works report. And first up is John with I-205 temporary traffic diversion update. John, do you have anything to share?
No, I don't. I really wanted to talk a little bit about the fact that we've got a pretty big project that is really phase 1 of the ODOT project, which includes the bridge and the interchanges on the Oregon City and the Westland side. And it goes that phase of the project goes all the way to 213 as well. We're heavy into plan review right now for the project, and ODOT is talking about really seeing contractor mobilization in March of 2022. So we're I think we've got like 90% plans that we've just reviewed and comment on. And Josh Wheeler, who you've heard from before, who's in my office, he just kind of acknowledged that the traffic control plans, we don't want to get into the weeds with the Transportation Advisory Committee, but we thought we'd want to share those with you, and we should know a little bit. We haven't seen those yet, by the way. They haven't been submitted, but we're hoping to see those. And so there's a couple of things. One is trying to bring that back for some discussion with the TAC. And we're thinking at the end of this month, and I know at the end of this month, we don't have a meeting scheduled, but we could do a meeting if we wanted to. And then the other question is just, I know we've got August and September. I think right now we'd like to do a July meeting because Josh would like to he's also working on the Park Place urbanization plan and some of the outcomes associated with that work. So timing is such that we'd like to get that in front of you in July. And oftentimes in the summertime, the TAC cancels July and August meetings. And I'm kind of suggesting if we did an extra meeting in June to talk about the ODOT traffic control kind of plans. And then we did hold a July meeting where we would bring that Park Place plan and any other miscellaneous topics that come up between now, but cancel the August and September meetings. I wonder how that's kind of the proposal. And so just trying to get some feedback from you on that and whether or not that sounds like something you would support or not.
When in June are you referring to for a second meeting in June?
So the dates that make sense would be the 28th, the 29th, or the 30th. And we do it via Zoom. So yeah, Ray, I know you were planning vacation and you're gonna try to fit in on the slip in on the goals meeting,
discussion, yeah,
which is a time meeting, and I think it's a smaller group. Trying to remember besides Henry and you, I can't remember.
Ben,
I would be unavailable for that extra meeting.
I'd be open to it.
We have a meeting scheduled on the 29th at 2.
That's the goal. That's the goals discussion.
Okay.
Committee.
You talk about the same time or later in the day on that?
No, I was thinking just another 6 o'clock meeting.
Okay.
My preference would be just to go ahead and have a June meeting on a normal date and get that in and get anything else that's hanging out there in so that they're wrapped up.
Well, we're having the June meeting right now.
July then.
The July meeting? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Have it then.
Part of me was, I think it's just such a big project and so impactful, and thought Josh's idea was to bring it was a good one. We would normally not do that, right? But so it's not a mandatory thing. I think, and we can still bring it in July. It'll be after the fact. You won't have much decision. It'll be more of an update than it will be, providing meaningful feedback.
Yeah.
Not to say if we did it in July and the project's not until February or March of 2022 that we won't be able to, share some more feedback. But it's just, I think the July meeting will be beyond the time frame that we have to get back to ODOT with feedback.
There's a time limit on that one.
Yeah, many of them have. Yeah, that project is under a fast track.
Okay, then I can see the point of having a meeting around the end of the month. Is there?
If people can make it, and I don't know, there's not, for one, we don't have everybody on the TAC on tonight. I don't know how folks would feel. Ben, I know you're probably it's pretty firm on that, but I don't know how I don't know if you'd be offended if we had a meeting and just tried to share that information and got whatever feedback we could from whatever membership could be in, present.
We'd probably be more upset if we didn't get a chance to comment. So.
I can send out why don't I send out an email to the TAC tomorrow to see what their availability would be for what, John, a June 29th meeting?
28th, 29th, or 30th.
Okay. Or I can do the poll if you would like.
Yeah, do the poll, would be great.
Okay.
Yeah. Sounds like
Okay.
a plan.
All right, I appreciate that. That's
I will
all I
say-
got on that.
I will quickly say the 30th, there's an OC 2040 PAT meeting, Project Advisory Team meeting on the 30th. And so I've already got another city meeting that night.
Oh, that's true. Okay. So let's try for the 28th or the 29th, because that probably is something we don't want to conflict with.
Okay.
Thank you, Kim.
What's next on your agenda, John? Vance?
Vance has got a couple of things we're going to talk about that have been past topics. And so I think there are updates.
Yeah, that's correct. We're going to wrap it up with a couple updates. First off is lighting on Redland Road as it approaches Abernathy and Holcomb. We have made contact with PGE. We have a job number, a PGE job number, which is great news. And PGE will be installing the lights on 3 different poles on Redland Road. They couldn't give us a time. I've found that typically PGE utilizes work like this as sort of fill-in work. So you could see it tomorrow, or it could be, several weeks, if not a month or two. But again, that's good news on Redland Road for those lights. I also drove Abernathy. There was some question about lighting near the sort of the entrance to the golf driving range. And I pulled up our maps. There's one light on the where the county shops are, sort of more down towards Washington. There are a lot of poles very similar to Redland Road, and it's a similar situation. County road, city property. So we'll be reaching out to PGE and doing the same thing on Abernathy to have them install mast arms, LED Cobra heads. There'll be option A. PG typically installs those on their nickel, and then the city pays the monthly fixture fee and power charges.
That should be good for cutting down theft around the county yard. I don't know if they have a problem there. But
Yeah, that's interesting. I don't know if they do either, Tim. I've never heard, but it wouldn't surprise me.
yeah, and then you also have the police, sheriff's department on the other side there, is parking all their vehicles too, and probably employee vehicles.
Yeah,
So,
correct.
I think
Oh, I'm sorry, Tim, go ahead.
No, I think it's a really good idea to do some lighting there, not for crime, but also for visibility on the road. It's very dark.
Yes, yep, correct. And the second update is tree trimming on Holcomb.
Yay.
If it's not already done, our transportation division will be on Holcomb, getting some of the low branches, especially coming down Holcomb towards Redland Road. There's some low branches there. Also, Dante Basada, our right-of-way manager, is communicating with the communication companies, telephone and cable TV, to see if they can kind of do some maintenance tree-wise around their lines. Dante has some very good pull. He has some very good contacts. I've not heard what progress he's made on that, but I'm confident that if he hasn't already, he'll be reaching out to those folks and trying to get that work accomplished. PGE, on the other hand, typically does a very good job on their lines, but I think everybody probably knows, and when you look at a power pole, the top 1 or 2 rows at the very top are PGE, and the rest of the lines you see are all communication. And that's why you see the top of the lines always nicely cleared, because they're PGEs. And communication companies are notorious for being a little delinquent on maintaining branches on their lines. Does anybody have any questions about lighting on Redland, Abernathy, or the tree trimming on Holcomb?
So I saw this morning on my way to work that there was two Oregon City pickups, I guess you would say, right there at the corner. And I'm totally impressed with you guys. I think Portland stole your motto, the city it works. I don't think Portland works, but Oregon City definitely does work. And I appreciate your quick response to that. I got calls, and it's great to see that it's being, looked at.
You bet, no problem. We definitely strive to respond as quickly as we can. Sometimes it takes us a while, because we have to fit things in. But in this case, with other vegetation work that we have around the city, it fit in very nicely this week to accomplish that.
Hey, Vance.
Yes.
No questions regarding the lighting you mentioned, but I just wanted to get an update regarding the transit center and the street lighting in that area.
That. So we've identified some existing lights at the transit center that are high pressure sodium that need to be upgraded to LEDs, and we do have that plan to do in-house. There's also the pole that we talked about that was torn down. That one's going to take a little longer. I believe I had mentioned when we talked about it before, we actually have to excavate the existing pole base because the bolts that come out of the concrete are damaged. So we've got to dig it all out, get a new base, put that in. And then instead of going back to an aluminum pole, which was what was there prior, we're going to a good cast iron, black, fluted pole. They're much more robust. They'd have to hook a truck to it to pull it down. And I think the aluminum poles, they're actually pulling down by hand. So that is in the works. And I would say that we should see some good improvement there by the end of summer.
All right, thank you.
You bet. That's all I got, folks.
Anything else on the menu here? Any future agenda items? Anything anybody wants to bring up to discuss later?
Was there any follow-up on, Henry, on the subdivision off of Holcomb about that road, the Goat Run Road, whatever it is, off of Redlands Road? What we were talking last meeting.
I'm trying to remember.
So there's building 400 homes, I believe, between Holcomb and then the road down below. You said it was an old goat trail or something.
You're talking about Livesay.
Yeah, Lindsay. Yeah.
Lindsay. Part of the old wagon train.
The massive subdivision that we always talk about up there.
Well, I guess, I don't remember too much about that, Timothy, but I would say that it's my understanding that the property owner that has rights to those property up there is planning to submit the first submittal, which is a master plan. And so there's going to be lots of public comment opportunity on that. Land use doesn't necessarily come to TAC, but there's no reason why that's a master plan. So we probably, I think, especially Henry, if you made contact with Laura, you could probably have them schedule a time where they could bring that before TAC.
That might be helpful, if only because we seem to discuss it a lot.
Yeah, it sounds like there's an interest there. Yeah. So do you want to reach out to Laura and just give her a heads up on that?
Well, I can. Why don't, if Kim will send me an email to remind me, because sometimes I do find myself going off in other directions, doing things and forgetting a few things. I don't want to admit it, but that does happen to me.
I can send you a reminder email, Henry.
So, anything else?
Just for me, I'm curious if there's interest from I know the last meeting that I suggested 2 future agenda items, and I'm not sure if that's something that I know last committee meeting there was no interest. I don't know if there's any interest now. but I wanted to bring it up again because I think it's important topics to discuss the ODOT Metro's regional mobility policy update and the I-205 toll project, the policy, performance measures, and strategies.
So
Ray, I know you sent me an email on this, and so both those topics, you know, from my understanding, and Dana's still on, so maybe she can light up here a little bit, because I know she's tracking those topics more than I am. But you know, they're set up with kind of their own committees and discussion groups. And out of that, you know, that's the right way to get feedback to them, from what I understand. So I don't exactly know what your specific interest is in that, but I just want to make sure if we're using Transportation Advisory Committee time, that it's the appropriate tool. And from what I understand, we're really not, you know, those ODOT committees, whether they would consider the Oregon City TAC discussion, unless they let it, any kind of feedback we gave them, I'm not sure how much they would value that. But Dana, is there a better way of saying that than what I said?
You know, I think tomorrow is actually our next transit and multimodal working group for the tolling project. So I was just looking through my email to see if we got an advanced package with any material, but I suspect we'll be continuing to talk about the performance measures and how we look at the impacts of tolling. You know, it's a pretty technical topic. I don't know if the group is interested in getting that deep in the weeds on the technical side of tolling, but if there's interest, we can have a discussion. But again, I think, you know, if you've got concerns and you want to share those up through, you know, Vance and John, I can share those at the working group meetings. I sit on both the transit and multimodal working group, as well as the regional modeling group for tolling. And then I also sit on the regional mobility policy group for discussions. So, you know, if the TAC has feedback or thoughts, you know, I can funnel that through to the technical groups. So I don't know if that answered your question, but
I think from my perspective, my main goal is to, since we're supposed to be advising the city commission as the TAC, that I know the city commission is discussing tolling. And so my viewpoint, I would like to advise the city commission through the TAC on what, you know, the TAC's position is on tolling project that impacts Oregon City. And in my mind, I see this as a safety issue that I feel like I want to, through the voice of the TAC, which I don't know if I am the only one who has this concern, but I feel like I want to have the TAC's viewpoint expressed to the city commission saying, we want safety concerns taken more seriously regarding tolling and the tolling impact on diversion through downtown Oregon City. And so that's where my position is on this topic.
I'm just going to jump in. It's interesting that the committee is only viewing it as a technical issue, because I've been following a lot of the agenda and slides they've been putting out, and it seems they're very interested in approaching how we're going to make these low income opportunities and resources available for those underrepresented communities. And their real drive is public commentary and the input, and trying to make this as DEI as possible. I think it affects Oregon City a lot, given just the nature of 99E and the connection of 213 and the freeways. And we should really have more opinions regarding this, because it affects not only the residents here, but the commuter residents also. And I'd like to also represent TAC on this as well.
I guess that's kind of my point, that I'm not sure how the TAC represents that group, but we can definitely ask them more about that. I mean, it seems like ODOT is looking for feedback direct through all those. That's why they've got, you know, all the social media, the websites, the, you know, online forums, surveys, all those. That's where they're looking for that feedback. Would they, you know, would we take a small sliver or element of the conversation that Ray's talking about with regard to tolling, and first of all, try to articulate that to the TAC in a way that's, you know, I guess if we could get the right ODOT people here to do that, that's fine. That may be a good way of doing that, but I don't think we're necessarily comfortable bringing those topics to you, and especially when there's this online forum to get that feedback directly from you to them.
I think it's important that the TAC has a lot of input on at least feeding the information through somebody through Oregon City into the ODOT. I mean, I've participated in a lot of the events or the stuff online, and I get, you know, the notes when they're having it, but I really don't think, I travel this route every morning. So I tell you, if you put the toll at the bridge at 205 by the airport, you get about 30% of the traffic less going through Oregon City, because I'm commuting with a lot of people with Washington plates. And I'd say it's probably 30%, maybe even 40% that are driving down that road there. But there are going to be ways, people are going to figure out a way how to circumvent that to get around, and they're going to come through downtown Oregon City or around by Home Depot or something. It's going to clog up the areas there. And they haven't really addressed the thing of encouraging people to do like carpooling. If two people are in a car together, are they going to let them go through free? And how are they going to collect from people from Washington, which is 30 to 40% of the cars that are during the commute hour that are going to Washington? Then you've got all the people out of state traveling through here, going their way to Idaho or Washington State, or going to California or Southern Oregon. How are you going to collect from them when they're not even aware that we're supposed to be paying? So, and then, you know, from a selfish point of view, if I want to go to see my son up on Solano Drive, I'm going to have to go through a toll zone just to go to his house in West Lynn, or he's going to come through us. So these are things I think it's very important. That's one of the reasons why I joined this group or submitted my application, was to get involved in protecting Oregon City's livelihood with this very unpopular tolling program that they want to put out, you know, and how it's going to impact our city. People trying to save $1, or we don't even know how much it's going to cost, do we? Do we know how much it's going to cost to drive on this road when we need to go to work?
Not only how much it's going to cost, but how long to see the positive effects from that money integrated into the city.
Well,
there's no timeline.
We don't know any of that, nor does ODOT, from what I can tell.
One thing we all have to remember, though, above all else about this subject, the legislature told ODOT to do this. So perhaps the best approach is not to talk to ODOT, but to talk to our legislators. Because ODOT's going to listen to the legislature and do what they're told to do.
It's a very good point.
I just want to clarify, I'm not talking about discussing tolling, whether it should happen or not. I'm talking about the performance measures, strategies, and policies. So that's a totally different discussion in my mind. Just want to clarify differences. And so that's what I'm trying.
The one comes from the other. If you don't have to do the tolling, you don't have to have the policies.
It's time to approach the commissioners and state legislators then, because they need to hear from the public. And if not, then 2023, 2024, there's going to be a toll, and we don't know how it's going to affect the back roads downtown and the livelihood of Oregon City.
That's something I've been hitting on for the last year and a half or 2 years or 3. You remember how long it's been, John, that I've been trying to point that out?
Well, and I just want to point out that this is, there's a lot of community conversation going on. And what we're talking about is, or what Ray's talking about is a very finite focus on a much larger topic that so far hasn't, I don't believe it's reached the point where it's ready for TAC. That doesn't mean that we're not willing to take it to TAC, but I'm not sure it's quite ready for TAC. I don't, I think the community is well aware of this. I mean, there's no one who's not aware of tolling. The answers haven't happened, and we don't know where the decision's going to come down, but that's part of the hard part, is trying to figure out when to bring meaningful updates to the TAC on a topic that's kind of scattered and
Nebula.
and really ODOT is trying to reach individuals through, you know, various forms, and that right now happens to be the right way to get that feedback in. But I mean, I think what I'm hearing is a lot of confusion about this, and, you know, is there a way to get ODOT? ODOT's been to a variety of city commission meetings as well, where they've provided updates, and I think they're scheduled to come back. I can't remember, but future city commission meetings yet this year to continue to give the city commission updates on the various programs. So yeah, I'm at a bit of a loss as to how to focus their conversation with this group. Ray, I kind of question whether or not the conversation you're having right now is with the committee that you're on, right? So there's usually opportunities for people to sign up for committees, and Ray's the one who has stepped up for that. So we want to bring you meaningful topics, and we recognize the importance of tolling. That's why Dana sits on so many of these committees as well, just to kind of fully understand kind of some of the, you know, the concepts. But yeah, it's right now, it feels like it's not the right time to bring that TAC. But if everybody feels like I'm wrong about that, then we're happy to try to find an ODOT representative to come before the TAC.
So is this all real premature yet? And does ODOT even know if they get any infrastructure money that would even offset things so that tolling doesn't have to be done? You know?
I guess I'll respond just to whether I think this topic is ready for TAC. I met with Garrett from ODOT, I think last week, a week before, to ask him about talking to the TAC about this topic. And he said he is willing to present this topic to the TAC this summer or this fall when it works in our meeting schedule. And so Gary and I both feel like this is something that's ready for the TAC discussion. So, I mean, Garrett said, yes, he's open to bringing this and it is ready for, you know, decision making, because they are deciding this summer about which policies and performance measures and strategies to proceed with. And so this is like a current, like this summer decision making process, not a year away process. And so in my mind, you know, these decisions are being made this summer.
I can certainly support having a discussion about these things. After all, the more we know about it, probably the better off we're going to be.
Yeah, so my question is if they're trying to do a traffic reduction like it occurred from March 16th of 2020 to May 30th of 2021, and that's what tolling would do, I think a lot of us will be happy, but I don't think that's going to happen because not everybody's going to be able to work from home and not going to be able to jump when somebody has to open up their grocery store. Those people need to be there at 8 o'clock, not telecommuting to take their order. So I think you're right about, is it too early But I think it'd be good to plant some seeds in some of our concerns so it gets in their discussions so they start considering those things. Then when they come back and have more input of the feedback of how they're just seeing it. But I think if we stay silent, they're going to move on with their agenda, how they want it. And then we're going to have to start fighting to get changes that we feel may not be a benefit to the city.
I was just gonna jump in. What I'm hearing from both John and Ray is that this is already in the making and it's gonna happen. And what we need to focus in on are the policies and implementation of the project and how it's gonna affect the community and the surrounding residents. I'm open to a presentation, and I think it's important that we recognize as TAC members, we're the public comment and we're here because everyone else is handling other issues and other things in their lives. So we need to have an opinion and be present in this project.
Well, Ray brought this up last meeting and we almost didn't talk about it again. So Ray's asked two things. Metro and ODOT's regional mobility policy update. Is that what you want to hear about? Yes or no?
Ray, you start off. Is that what you want to hear about?
I want to discuss both topics, but I think the I-205 tolling project is probably more urgent because the regional mobility policy update, they're going to do a testing this summer and fall. And so there won't really be test results until probably fall. But the I-205 tolling project, they're making those decisions this summer. So in my mind, the tolling decisions are being made urgently.
And Ray, you called it before the I-205 performance policy measures?
Correct. Well, it's I-205 toll project. Within that is the performance measures, policies, and strategies.
Okay. So is that the topic this committee wants to hear about?
I think it's a good place to start.
I'm open to Garrett's presentation and going from there, yeah. So we get a better understanding of what they're really planning.
I can coordinate with Garrett if you want me to set that meeting with him.
Yeah,
Get it
and-
on the agenda.
Tim and Ben, any comments on that?
I'm in agreement that I'd like to hear more about the subject, and if Ray can set it up, I think that sounds like a great idea.
I agree with that.
So then back to the July meeting. Are we okay with having the July meeting? We've got Josh planned for that, and I don't know, Ray, if you can rally somebody by July, but that seems like
I can ask Garrett if he's available in July.
okay. Appreciate that. Does that work?
Yep, sounds good. I'm thankful
And
for
then-
the movement compared to last month. So thanks for being more open to discussing this.
Right.
So, having now said that it's 4 minutes past 8 and we're on overtime.
Well, wait a minute, Henry.
Oh.
August and September, what are we gonna do with those meetings? You know, have them, or we want to pass and take our summer break?
I think we should have the September one and leave the August one sort of hanging, because if something shows up, it needs our attention. It's be nice to be able to say yes or no, but I think by September, I think we're going to need to have a meeting again.
September, what day would we have that meeting? What would it be?
Whatever the third Tuesday is.
The 21st.
Okay. I'll just be advanced notice. I will not be here on the continent on the 20th. So in case that meeting's there, I mean, I can pipe in from a faraway place if necessary. But
Well, it's just a weird hour, that's all.
this means I'll be 3 hours behind you.
Hawaii calls.
Yes, that's my anniversary. So that week, so my wife is wants to get
Congrats.
out of place.
You know, I think you better skip our meeting.
Do you guys want to come with me?
No.
Okay, so what I heard was, tentatively, no August meeting, definitely a July meeting and September meeting. Okay, sounds
Yep.
good.
Sounds good.
All righty. So hearing nothing else, nobody's going to interrupt me. This meeting stands adjourned.
Thank you.
Farewell.
Take care.
Have a good month.
All right,
Bye.
See you in a month.
sounds good.